but we'll cover a lot of topics. And everyone, if you're familiar with the chat features, please feel free to type questions in there anytime you want. I have some pre-written questions that people send to me, but feel free to chat and write anything in there. I'm getting better and better and better at reading as I go, okay? So we'll do that. So I want to start out with, I'm not going to start out with the questions. I'm just going to start out with things come to me as we're moving along, different things about this period of history, and receiving downloads faster than I can even acknowledge what's going on. And it's really kind of fascinating. One of the really interesting things I've been noticing this week is that there's so many things that have happened since, let's just say 2012, so we have a starting point. There are so many things that have happened since 2012 that as we were going through them, or as I was communicating with guides along the way, they made enough sense to me at the moment, and it always felt authentic, and I always felt like I was able to bring information of value that would bring people to the next place. But what I'm noticing now is that the brilliance and the foresight of what guides have told us through me over that last 8 years, it makes so much sense. I mean, I actually think it's probably a worthy effort for me to draw out the timeline from 2012 to today and talk about like the different topics that guides brought through in each of those years, because they did have very distinctively different personalities. And I remember I gave a seminar in 2014, and it was a really long seminar, like 6 hours or something. And at the end of that seminar, I left everything there, and I was driving home, and I remember thinking, that's it, we're done. I like, there's nothing else in the universe that I could possibly tell anybody. I think I just have to hang up my hat and retire, because we're finished. There's nothing left. I've said everything. And then I rested for like a day or 2 or 3. And sure enough, after a few days, I started to get new downloads. So one of the things I'm recognizing in hindsight is that guides, it's so clear now that they just drop whole downloads on me, and then I get it out, I push it out, I get it out there, I get it out there. We talk about it, and we do the themes, and we meet a couple of times a month, and I coach and all this, and I write the essays. Then they give me another big download, and I push it out, and I push it out, and another and another. And as all of this is going on, in general, I don't revisit the topics of yesterday. In 2012, I wasn't going back to 2007, and so on. And I also found, and I think it's just my personality, but I was kind of, I get a little bit, I get a little bored going backwards. I'll do it when someone brings up a question. I'll try to give them very succinct answers to whatever question, even though we've been talking about that for 3 years already. I'll give you an answer and try to make it really fast, but I want to go here. That's where I want to go. That's where I get really excited. But what's absolutely amazing, I'm going to be so much more connected as I'm receiving information about things to come, now that I see how profoundly they indicated this timeline for us, with every single thing leading up to this period in 2020. It's almost as though the only thing that I wasn't told was what would create the shutdown, what would create the shift. Every single other thing that we're experiencing and we're witnessing, we have been told. We have been told. And that, to me, is a beautiful thing, because number one, it means we're exactly where we want to be. And number two, since I usually get the most positive, if I get the most positive, I lost my track because someone sent me a private message. So private message back to the private messenger. Thank you very, very much. I don't remember what I was talking about. Okay. Okay, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. Okay, so I know. So even though I'm talking about things that a lot of people, when we bump into them on this planet, when they're unfolding, they seem scary, or they seem impossible, or they seem like this is the one thing that's undoable. I always bring in that other version. I always bring in the happy part. I always bring about, you know, where we're going in enlightenment. I always bring that other stuff, the other angle of it. I don't like to, nor do I stay in the negative. To me, what we witness as something that we're perceiving as negative on earth, it's self-apparent. I really don't have to look at it. I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to tell you about it. You guys, everyone on this planet is going to find their negativity if they want to. But what we like to do is to really say, what is this doing for us? What can we turn around? And over again, we're told exactly what the benefits are of anything that seems unsettling that's happening. And whether it's happening individually, or it's happening collectively, or it's happening on the globe, we're always told the balancing information of where we can take this. So what I find remarkable is that this last 8 years, the only thing the guys have been doing is getting us ready for exactly where we truly wanted to be. And those who have been able to integrate some of the messages that have been given over the last 8 years, they're the ones that are riding above the wave right now. They're on the top of the crest. They're the ones that are saying, oh, look at this. This is so exciting. This is so much fun. I'm so happy about this. And I can see possibility here. The reason is because enlightenment means we understand things and we comprehend things from a different level. We have a version of what's possible that's enhanced, that gives a soulful view. It brings information of positive possibility to every circumstance and every situation that we have. And now we're in this circumstance that brings in just about as much that a lot of people would perceive as being negative, but it's also bringing a notable windfall of what we're also seeing as being positive. And it's bringing it through with as much of a deluge as it is bringing in what other people are seeing as negative. So my feeling is that all of this information has brought us to exactly where we want to be. And that makes me feel calm. And that makes me feel peaceful. And that makes me feel excited about what's to come next. Individually, the path of enlightenment, we face different qualities or different perspectives as we're going through that path. And those individual moments of growth that we have, I've always said all along that the growth is potentially for us as individuals, but the growth is always there as an opportunity for the collective. When individuals grow, we make different contributions to the collective. It's inevitable because we become different players on the global playing field. We become different whether we're noting it or not. We become very different with our friends and with our family. We're different with our relationship with our bodies. We're different with our relationships with the material world, with abundance, with our career. So our individual growth leads to collective growth. So whether or not you knew me and attended events, hundreds and hundreds of events over the last 8 years or not, if you have gotten your aha moments over all of these years and you're integrating these aha moments and you're experiencing growth, then you are ahead of the curve, because what this coronavirus is allowing is a massive opportunity for others to catch up. Enlightenment is there and it's available for everybody, whatever those steps are. And actually last year and this year, I've been reviewing what the steps of enlightenment are. The 52 words last year that everybody received as an email each Sunday night, they were basically spiritual growth, awakening, and enlightenment 101. So every single Sunday, it was a review. This is what we know. This is how we can focus. This is what we can implement into our lives. This is the lens that we can look through in moving forward. So I know we know the steps, but there are millions and billions of people on earth who are having a soulful experience in a human body that haven't integrated some of those steps of enlightenment. I'm not saying I'm finished. I'm not saying any of you are finished. I don't know how many more there are, but what I do know is that the aha moments that I have come across in my life since this process has started, that I integrate them and I live them. They're not in my head, they're in my being. They're in my relationship with my body, they're in my relationship with the material world, and they're in my relationship with people. So now we want to take a peek at the stuff that we've discovered from books, from personal real life experiences, from other speakers, other avenues of thought, other philosophies that are out there that are helping us to be aware of this timeless information. From the beginning of recorded history, when we started to be able to write things out, the story is the same over and over again. Now, I am simply a conduit tapping into that information the same way someone like Socrates tapped into that information, the same way someone like William James tapped into that, the way some groups like the Beatles tapped into that. Through all of history, when there's a body of information that exceeds the lifetime of the individual or the group, it's because they're tapping into the same river of universal knowledge. So I happen to scrub my conduit so I can tap into it. So I'm bringing through timeless information. But how that timeless information shows itself in the current society and the current way that humanity is living, that's the only thing that will shift from decade to decade and century to century. So getting back to this timeline, what is very exciting to me is that we're now at the precipice of some of the most phenomenal changes that modern history has ever had the potential to witness, and all for good, not for harm, but for good. It's all about the potential. It's not about what people are actually able to do with it. But the more aspects of enlightenment that we have incorporated as individuals, the more we're going to be able to be of value, making a contribution to help others along with their own aha moments and with the integration of those aha moments. So we have this potentiality for lots and lots and millions and millions and millions of people to catch up. And if you think about what this period means of seclusion and separation and predictability is gone, people don't really understand their relationship with money right now, their future financial circumstances. A lot of people are very nervous about their relationship with their bodies, afraid of getting sick, afraid of loved ones getting sick. So what's going on is, if you take away every distraction in day-to-day experience, then you can accidentally stumble upon intuition. You can accidentally stumble upon information that brings us methods to be happier and moving forward. We can stumble upon things like being more creative, playing more, showing love, expressing love, expanding in love, understanding the power that we have with our own bodies, understanding that, kind of getting a hint that our physical lives individually and collectively are actually fiction. This is a stage for us to grow our souls on collectively. So all of these little nuggets of wisdom become more possible for people to tap into because there's so fewer distractions. People are not commuting. People are not going to restaurants. People are not doing the stuff that they have learned to just kind of like really fill their time with. And each week that we have away from others and crowds and whatever was considered normal, every week we move away from that. We get, a lot of people do, not everybody does, but we get a little more creative in how we're spending our time and our focus. What are we doing? Whether we're doing new things because we're bored with the old, or because we're trying to move away from fear, or because we're actually tapping into intuition and we're starting to feel inspired or alive or free. But whatever's going on with fewer distractions, there's going to be a good percentage of our population, not all of them, of course, but there's going to be a percentage of the population that rises to new levels of enlightenment. What will happen as a result of that is there'll be a new rally for soulful behavior from organizations, from families, from communities, from politics, from religions. When a person touches soulfulness, whatever it is that gets them to touch soulfulness, one of the first phases that we go through is to become much less tolerant of people and things and circumstances that do not behave soulfully. So there'll be a little bit of anger out there, of course, when people see groups or organizations or companies not behaving soulfully. But that phase generally doesn't last that long. After we move through being less tolerant, then we move into acting in a more loving way, having more appreciation for people, having more patience with others, regardless of where they are within their level of awareness. So we will witness, as this passes, we will witness more people being impatient, more people being maybe intolerant, but it's just a phase, and we have to remember that it's just a phase. Those people eventually will become cheerleaders for soulfulness, and that's exactly what we want, and that's exactly what we want to encourage. So I want to lay out some scenarios here of some of the other potential benefits, and I say other because I've given a lot of Zoom classes over the last couple of weeks, but I'm downloading information so quickly, so whatever I say tonight is going to be things that I haven't mentioned on the Zoom classes before. See, the voice is going already. All right, here, this is my my dandelion tea. Anybody want to share some dandelion tea with me? Caramel nut dandelion tea. Does it get any better than that? Hopefully it'll soothe my voice too. So let me lay out just a scenario of, just say, Joe Block. Okay, so Joe Block owns a restaurant. His restaurant's closed for 1 month, 2 months. Every single thing that he thought he could count on with the restaurant, with the building of his own wealth, his own predictable financial future, it's all gone right now. And it's only gone temporarily, so he's not going to maybe collapse or, you know, fall into a depression, hopefully. But he is probably very scared, and he doesn't know how this moment in time will affect his future, or what will it take to catch up again. So if he's a little bit peaceful enough to recognize that everyone is in the same boat, not everyone in the country, not everyone in the neighborhood, not everyone who eats at his restaurant, but everybody on the whole globe. If he can get himself peaceful enough to remember that everyone's in the same spot, then he realizes that he's not alone, that whatever his personal challenges are in getting to where he wants to be, there's going to be incentives, there's going to be support, there's going to be forgiveness of certain timelines of debt and things like this. So if he can get to that space of peace, He's going to move into the next part of his journey differently, but with enthusiasm and with optimism. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here's where I want to say what's possible. And remember, Joe Block is just another guy who owns a restaurant. When he gets back into the kitchen, there's going to be such a sense of relief. And when he gets that restaurant back open and people are there and they're eating and they're buying and the produce and the gorgeous salmon is coming in the kitchen door, there's going to be so much feeling of passion because he's going to be excited to do the thing that it is that he wanted to do so much, that he's going to not have enough energy to do some of the stuff that he used to do that maybe didn't support soulfulness. So I was talking with a client on the other day, and there was an interesting word that popped up about this process. We're going to enter into a period of like personal amnesty. It's when we forgive each other for imaginary or real grudges that we're holding. We're going to just drop our defenses a little. We're going to drop down on our high bar of what we consider important and what we consider necessary and what we consider is the only way I'm going to be able to manage this. So in this period of amnesty, as we're turning our attention to the things that excite us or that we're passionate about, or just being excited about predictable routine again, as we turn our attention to that, we're going to appreciate it more than we did before this period. So we're just not going to have enough nasty or energy left to put it out to the stuff that we were holding on to for so long. Grudges, fear, lack, and so on. So one of the coolest things that can come of this is that this period of amnesty can help give a fresh start in so many relationships, even with career, in relationships with even where we live or what our choices are, or where we visit. Many people will feel that they have more energy for the things that they want to do and less energy for the things that weren't bringing them happiness or joy. Somebody typed in to me privately, honey and lemon. Okay, we'll have to get honey and lemon because I think it seems like I'm going to be doing Zoom quite a bit more and I can't keep giving the voice away, right? Honey and lemon. So think about that. Think about like a family, a big extended family. And, when my niece got married, you just sent $75 and I think you really should have sent $150 and I haven't spoken to you since. And then there's the grudge with the extended family of, oh, well, when my brother-in-law had his party, you already knew I was having a party for my wife and you picked the same day. Like all this stuff, all this dumb shit that we carry. This amnesty period is going to make so much of it melt away because we're putting our energy toward the stuff that builds life. So a lot of this stuff is going to truly be water under the bridge. So we're moving toward potentially, not everyone, let's remember that, not everyone, but all we really need is a good percentage of the population. We just need some people to get there. But we're going to start putting more attention to what we love, what we like, what makes us happy. We're going to reprioritize what we're doing with our energy. Our energy, if you think of all of our energy as an expression of the vibration of love, which is what we are, soul is love, it's all we are is love. We express that energy through our time, through our money, through our deeds and our behaviors. And we're going to start expressing that love in ways that are more soulful. You could probably, and please feel free to jot them in the chat room because it would be kind of cool to see. You could probably think of a lot of different ways how the coronavirus is going to make people reprioritize what they do with their time, with their money, with their deeds, with their behaviors, with their choices, with their love. So for example, if someone's feeling of their net worth has shrunk, and the consequence would be that they feel like they have less disposable income, they're going to be more judicious with what they do with that disposable income. So wouldn't it make more sense that they would start to intuit to put that disposable revenue to places where their heart pulls them, right? So if you heard of a company that was really not doing right by the consumer or by their employees during Corona, you might take your disposable income and put it more toward the companies that the soul is shining through all of this. You might find that you want to put your time and your money more to, I want to go see the house my grandmother grew up in Europe. So all of a sudden, we're doing things that are an extension of more soulfulness, rather than spinning our wheels, living in the human ego. I am reading a note in the chat room from Terry, thank you. We definitely have different heroes now. I love that. That's a really beautiful way of saying it. We do have different heroes now. One of the coolest things is that an illness, or the potential of an illness, or separating from one another, it has kind of stripped away all of these arbitrary dividers. So it no longer matters whether you are rich or poor, or Jewish or Christian or Muslim, or white or black, or you are gay or straight, because every single person is affected or has the potential to be affected in the same way. There is no discrimination. There is no choosing one over the other. So it does help us to see that there are heroes out there that we may not have rallied behind in the past because we were spending too much of our energy, our time, our money, our behaviors, or our choices. We were spending too much of that giving our effort and energy to things that were not heroic, were not soulful. They were perhaps an escape. Perhaps they were an avoidance. Perhaps they were something that made us feel good, but for reasons that are no longer priorities to us, because we're amping up our own relationship with what our priorities are, no doubt. I'm going to just give you guys a second because I'd love to go and look at all of you and raise your hand if you have a particular question about what we're talking about right now. So does anybody, if your video is blocked, I think you might be able to raise your hand in the chat room, but if not, just physically raise your hand. Anyone have a question right now? No, no questions, huh? Nobody wants to give my voice a break. Suddenly, you guys are raising your hands, right? Okay, no questions. All right, wait. I think someone might be. All right, no. All right, we'll go back then. We'll continue. And it just, again, like I said, put your questions in the chat room. I'm doing a much better job with keeping up with the chat room. Okay, so it's cool to think about this, about an amnesty period, about people not fighting trivial battles anymore. people using their energy toward things that are more valuable to them now, that they hadn't realized are more valuable to them. It's going to be wonderful to see how that plays out and all of the great possibilities of what we can achieve because of that. We're good. We're all muted again. Um, it's kind of cool to think about how far this can potentially bring us. In the short amount of time of the last few weeks, I'm amazed at how many people that I've spoken with who coach with me or have done sessions with that are shifting their career path because of this. I mean, a lot. And these are people that just weren't going to do it, whether it was 5 years, 3 years, or the end of the year. But their timeline, or even their feeling of having the courage to make that shift at all, they weren't anywhere near being ready to do that. So that's kind of cool. That means that in this new expression of what we're doing with our energy, our time, our money, our deeds, our behaviors, and our choices, a lot of people are amping it up already. A lot of people are doing things that are out of the ordinary, but that they want to keep doing them. And a lot of people are doing things that are brand new, by maybe creating their own business, by coming up with a plan of how to retire earlier than they had thought they would, by figuring out ways to get connected more with the people that they have kind of let fall through their fingers, but then now they're realizing how important they are in their life. So watch and also be mindful for yourself. What are you doing that's different with your time, your money, your deeds, your behaviors, and your choices? I know that I have been for a lot of years very mindful of how I spend my love and my energy. And one of the ways that I reflect that is by being somewhat aware of the businesses that I frequent. And if I'm aware of a company that doesn't behave in a soulful way, I do, even if it's inconvenient for me, I do withdraw my support of them by not shopping there, not doing business with them anymore. And as you're thinking about this, it's sort of like getting rid of pollutants, right? If you give lip service to not polluting, but then you're tossing all kinds of nasty chemicals out your windows and out the car window or out your company, then it's only lip service. If you really cared about the environment, you wouldn't throw those things out into the environment or have them in the air or have them in the groundwater or anything like that. But it's pretty much the same with anything that you are spending your money on or your time or your love. If you are giving your resources, your really precious soulful resources, to those who are not by choice living in a way where they're caring about humanity, or they're caring about the planet, or they're making attempts to become a better version of themselves, then the best way to communicate what you value with them is to withdraw this from them. And collectively, if we stay incentivized by Corona, then we can all be more powerful when we move forward. Back in the 80s, I can't remember his name offhand, but maybe it'll come to me. But there was a fellow who made an entire career just as a consumer advocate. Ralph Nader, that's what his name was. There was no such thing really as a career being just out there and outspoken for the benefit of the consumer. But right now we can be our own consumer advocates. And consumerism, it goes all the way through from our car insurance to where we're buying our groceries. This is a great chance to begin to rebuild the world in a more soulful way by paying close attention to where we're spending our time, our money, and our choices. If we go back to being ignorant or blind as to what we are spending these important resources on, then we may be adding to the parts of our collective reality that we are wanting to deconstruct, not reconstruct. This period is such a golden opportunity for us to bring apart whatever's not working, and then to get in there and rebuild it by choice with how we want to live, how we want to be in this world, what we want the world to be like. If we stay connected to these feelings, then that's exactly the world that we can create, the world that we want to live in. One thing that became even more apparent in the last 2 years of downloads from guides is that, number one, I've heard them become far more emphatic than they ever were before with me bringing information through. So I tend to be pretty soft, but I found their delivery has become stronger and stronger since 2018. And I recognized that it was really to bring more people to the places that we're talking about so that more people could ride the wave of this reevaluation period of humanity. You can see that enlightenment is no longer an option. It's the only way to build in the new world that's coming. So the emphasis was coming very, very strongly to try to help people be on board with understanding that there's going to be a tremendous deconstructing of that does not work, that does not serve us, and that we wanted to be alive and alert and aware of the choices that we want to make collectively in what we are building, the world that we are building. Everything we do is intentional, even if you act as if it's accidental. If you don't pay attention, it's still intentional. So bring your own thoughts into the equation and pay attention to the choices that you make. Because we don't want to bring in another massive opportunity like this from the universe to let us get into the driver's seat of bringing humanity to a far more soulful place. This windfall right now, even though it seems enormous, it's relatively small in the scheme of things. But in order to make it powerful as it can be, it's so important that we insert ourselves in the equation of what our expectations are of humanity and any service or business or community or politics that we are paying attention to in the future. This is a golden opportunity, so we have to stay alert after we get back to whatever our new normal will be. Another interesting thing, let me take a sip of my tea. Please, questions are welcome. Discussions are welcome. Honey is welcome. Lemon is welcome. Okay, so here's something interesting. Since 2001, since 9/11, I'm sorry, 2001, out of fear, and fear can be fueled, even the government and other organizations and each other can fuel fear. But fear has grown to an explosive rate. And the way that we're living, when we see how afraid we are to do anything, whether it's to fly or eat certain foods or travel different places and different places each day, when we see how afraid we've become, you know, maybe afraid to go to a concert because there's shooters out there, afraid to send our kids to school because there's shooters there, afraid of this disease because pharmaceutical companies told me I should be afraid, and afraid of this because another pharmaceutical ad told me I should be afraid of that. But we're living in this massive quantity of fear. It's almost like we release the silver ball in a pinball machine, and the release button just pings us off of fear, 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 fear. And it's almost as if we don't have any control over it. But we're the player. We're the one pulling the ball. We're the ones with the switches that tell the ball when to bing back up there. We don't have to live in that fear anymore. And fear is virtually the opposite of soulfulness. Love, when it's dialed down and dialed down and dialed down, it of course brings us to hate in the absence of the vibration of love. But even more, it brings us to the vibration of fear, which is the absence of love. When we live in fear, we are disempowered. Our relationship with ourselves change. Our relationship with our bodies change. Our relationship with our jobs and with people change. Our relationships with our families change. Because living in fear is living in a state of disempowerment. So what's important to do with this coronavirus is to amp up the vibration of love and to choose to be afraid less. It seems odd that when there's so much fear mongering going on, and when we are witnessing the statistics of people who are sick and dying from corona, it seems like that's kind of like an oxymoron. How could I fear less when the world is bombarding me with so much more to be afraid of? The universe is not asking us to be afraid more. What the universe is really asking us is to have a better sense of our own power. We've all heard of spontaneous healing, and we've all heard of people who got well unexpectedly or moved past what was supposed to be a lifetime chronic illness. The way that these things happen is not necessarily because one person locked themselves in a room until they reorganized their thoughts and shed fearful ideas, but either by being more around loving thoughts, loving views, loving themselves, surrounding themselves with optimistic and positive information and possibility. All of that stuff, which is soulful, can ignite within a person the vibrancy of healthy cells. So this virus is not designed to show us that we're vulnerable. This virus, for those who are living increasingly above the line, is designed to help us see that we can't pass matters of health onto what we deem the experts. That the expert about our relationship with our body is us. We are the expert. So we want to build that relationship, the relationship that we have with our own healthfulness, through how we eat, through how we exercise, through how we play, through the balance of all of the different areas of our life, through our priorities, and so on. But what a lot of people don't talk about in that equation, which I'm hoping comes to light more in this, is that it's not just our physical choices and our habits with our bodies that create vibrancy of good health. But what really creates vibrancy is more about how we feel. In the last 8 years, I suppose it is, The last 8 years that I've been channeling, most of you know this equation because I talk about it all the time, but it is such a basis for having a collective conversation where we're all on the same page and we understand. But there is a formula for how we create reality. And that formula is immutable. No matter how much you don't understand it, or no matter how much you might have a hard time with any of the elements in it, it doesn't change the fact that this is how we create our reality. And how that is by our thoughts plus our feelings plus our beliefs plus, gotta dry that. Need something to dry that. That'll dry it. Plus the subsequent actions based on what we are thinking about, feeling, and believing. That is how every single person on the planet creates their physical reality. Our physical reality is created by what we think, feel, believe, and the subsequent actions. We've talked about this formula for 8 years. Every single thing that happens, we go back to the formula. If I'm coaching you individually, we go to the formula. If we're talking in a seminar, we go to the formula. Now, we've worked on a lot. We've worked on the thoughts aspect of it. We've worked on the beliefs aspect probably more than any part of this equation, because the belief part is the only one where you can be unaware of what you believe. You might think you believe something, but there can be an unconscious belief that is sabotaging the outcome of the overall equation. So we've spent a lot of time on beliefs. And within that period of discovery of beliefs, what we work on a lot is regaining love of ourselves, stripping away the pain or the disappointments or the misinformation of childhood, and growing back our relationship with understanding how amazing we are, how vibrant we are. So we've done this. We spent a lot of time, even in more recent years, focusing on the actions that we take. So if you have vibrant thoughts and amazing feelings and your belief system, you're kind of clear that you want to meet a goal and you don't have any unconscious saboteurs in there to meet that goal. But if you don't take action to get you to what you're aiming to establish, then none of that matters anyway. So we can certainly see that all 4 components are necessary for us to create the reality that we desire. Last year, 2019, was the first year that guides felt like all they wanted to talk about was feelings. You know, everything I did had a major component about talk. I think even the 2019 year before us, I think the theme was feelings, if I remember correctly. Feelings became a big part of that. Our feelings are something we think direct us, but that's not the case. We direct our feelings. We direct where we want that to be. So many people, when we're talking about happiness, we start out by saying, yes, blah, 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 but I can't because of this, or I haven't because of this. As soon as they put the but after the beginning of the possibility, what they're expressing is that, number one, everything that happened before the but now goes away. All the good's gone, because the universe only hears what comes after the but. But what's going on is that your feelings are that the good place you want to go is not possible. You're not feeling it. You're not feeling excited. You're not feeling enthusiastic. You're not feeling like it's possible. You're not feeling jazzed. You're not feeling happy. So the feeling that I'm hoping this coronavirus is going to help more and more people tap into, the feeling that can help us as individuals and therefore humanity to go to the space of creating a more soulful planet. The feeling really is, it's joy. It's joy. And what joy is it's a very simple feeling. It almost feels like it's coming from the inside of either the heart or it's coming from inside like the head. Some people it's coming from the inside of like from our gut, but it's something that just comes and it grows. Joy is the reason we're here. And frankly, we're not experiencing enough joy. I'm not talking about being positive. I'm not talking about having gratitude. I'm not talking about some of this stuff that's been beaten into us ad nauseum. I'm talking about joy, actually feeling good, Practicing gratitude, that's an action, that's a verb. Feeling positive or trying to be positive or finding the positive aspect in something, that's action again. What's the feeling behind this stuff? Do you actually feel good? Do you feel excited? Do you feel happy? Do you feel like things are filled with positive possibility? It's the feeling. And we've dialed that feeling down so much because we're constantly bombarded with negative news or reasons to be afraid. We're constantly living in fear. Whatever that fear is, we're living there so much. You can't have a big, profound feeling of joy and a feeling of fear simultaneously. It doesn't work that way. You can't have a negative and a positive feeling simultaneously in your body or in your mind. You can toggle back and forth, but you can't sustain both at the same time. Joy is what we want. Joy is what we want. So many people during Corona, they've had to kind of surrender. There's nothing I can do. Can't get my restaurant open. Nothing I can do. First year I denied it. Second week I fought it. Third week I was angry. Fourth week I had nothing left. I have to just accept it. And when they get to the period of acceptance, then the choice could be, since I have to be here anyway, maybe there's nothing to fight right now. And if I have nothing to fight, what if I just play? What if I actually just have a good time? What if I explore things that I've never explored before? What if I just let myself be stress-free for a day? What if I let myself be stress-free for an hour? Part of the whole Corona experience is to let so many more people go into these unfamiliar places. And when we live in those unfamiliar places, even if it's for a brief period, they become a part of what we want to experience in the future. You know, the first time, everyone remember the first time they ever got on a plane? Let me look at everybody here for a second. Everyone remember the first time you got on a plane, right? It becomes a set point. This is a new set point for you. And especially people that are not on tonight, this is a new set point where they're experiencing the potential of something that is not a part of their lives anymore. So when you have that, it becomes memorable. So I can tell you the exact first time I got on a plane, I know exactly where I went. I know exactly how old I was. That was a set point that began to open the world for me, and I could see that I could travel farther, and I could visit things, and I could buy plane tickets, and I could go. So it was a set point for me. And so this is potentially a set point for all of us to experience real life moments to play, to experience real life moments to be happy, to experience that thing that just pops up. Joy is not something you can chase down. Damn it, I'm gonna feel joy today. We can't chase it. We can't grab it. It has to kind of find us. But we're the ones that provide the canvas of our reality to allow joy to be a member and to dance on this canvas or not. We're the ones. No one's doing it to us. We think people are doing it to us. No one's doing it to you. The only one doing it is you. Are you providing a canvas in which joy can emerge? All right, I'm going to use an analogy as I discuss joy. Wish I had an assistant that I could clean my board for me. I'm really not good at it, but I don't. I'll figure that out too. But what I can't get it off without it being wet, and I can't draw when it's wet. So I'm kind of in a conundrum here, right? Okay. Let's try a dry cloth. See if that works. No, not much. Okay. All right, I'm going to use an analogy to help to describe this process of how joy changes our lives. Okay. I'm going to look at everybody because I'm going to ask kind of a weird question now, and I want to see you guys raise your hands. But how many people here have a cesspool? Anybody have a cesspool? Okay, we got a few. A lot of homeowners out here in suburbia, we have cesspools. Well, I always have like a sciencey kind of mind, so I'm always curious about different things. And I watched in my neighborhood, there was about a 5-year period when virtually everyone in my neighborhood was getting their cesspool dug up and a new one put in. So, you know, everyone's like, it's the age, it's the you know, how old all the pipes are and the cesspool itself. It's going to happen. It's going to happen when the house is this old or that old or whatever. So it made me really curious because obviously, does that mean I'm up next? And I don't want it to be my house next. Okay, so because where our cesspool is my son's football field. You can't be digging up a cesspool on the football field, can you? So what I did instead was I just started to kind of look up, like, how does a cesspool work and what makes it collapse and what makes its lifespan over? And what I discovered is that cesspool is kind of a fun analogy, right? You guys are all feeling joy here, right? Okay, so a cesspool is actually, it's a perfect ecosystem. So what happens is we put in waste and we put in water and we give it a space where it does what it's supposed to do, which is create bacteria and lots of bacteria. You can imagine there's quite a bit of bacteria in there, right? The bacteria eats the waste. What happens to dissolve this perfect perpetual ecosystem is that our modern world, what we do now is we put our washing machine waste in here, right? And we put our, what's that other machine we wash stuff with? Oh, dishwasher. We put our dishwasher stuff in there. And what happens is the soap and the laundry detergent, that massive quantity of stuff that we're pouring into there, it kills the bacteria. Fascinating, right? When you kill the bacteria, the waste doesn't get eaten. So it just stays there. Fascinating, right? So a long time ago, I'm going to say it was probably intuition, because intuition can even apply to a cesspool system. I have no idea why, but I guess it can. A long time ago, I took my washing machine and my that other thing, dishwasher, and I moved it out of the cesspool and created a different cesspool for those two items, because something in my head said that shouldn't be going into the other cesspool. So here we are, 10 years past when the entire neighborhood got new cesspools, and ours is still 100% fine and has never needed any service whatsoever, because it is a perfect ecosystem. It's a perfect ecosystem. Where are you going with this? I'll tell you where I'm going with this. All right, so before Corona, I would have drawn us like this, and this is us, right, happily. But now after Corona, we're going to draw us like this because we've been eating a little more than usual. But we have a perfect ecosystem in our bodies, perfect. We have healthy cells and we have unhealthy cells, and they work in balance with one another. And what we put into the ecosystem keeps it balanced. But it's not just our food, and it's not just how much we run to shake up this ecosystem and make sure it's moving all around. It's not just exercise, and it's not just how we eat. Those are two big important factors because they're part of the ecosystem. But the other part is how we feel. Our feelings are a massive part of our ecosystem. Joy ignites healthy cells. Fear ignites unhealthy cells. Because fear is not love. Joy is love. In our perfect ecosystem of our bodies, we need love. We need love. Love is what balances our ecosystem. When we shove in there jealousy, rage, fear, disempowerment, and all this other stuff, we are polluting the ecosystem. It does not function properly. Illness is not random. Nothing is random. So as we've been moving toward perhaps a healthcare system where everyone would be able to have access, it's not free, but everyone would have access to medical care and treatment and drugs and all this. One of the things the universe is saying to us with Corona is don't stop being a part of the equation. When people feel that health care is free, it's not free, even if it's available to everyone. When people start thinking that it's free, we tend to take ourselves out of the equation. We tend to stop understanding the ecosystem of our bodies. We tend to stop seeing how powerful we are in our relationship with our bodies. We start to see ourselves more as victims. Or watching pharmaceutical ads, we pass our power on to thinking that things are always going to go wrong. If we feel like we're going to get this disease, that disease, every disease, it's changing the ecosystem. There are studies that you can research that are done by some of the top medical research universities in the world, and triple blind, where maybe it's a Johns Hopkins or whatever. I think Johns Hopkins had one. But one of the things that they have shown and proven, and it's so funny because I always find it really interesting that the medical community will call this pseudoscience, because pharmaceuticals are not pseudoscience, right? I'm not saying all medicine is bad, because it's clearly not. It's the greed and abuse that makes it less helpful, less good. So one example of a study, and research it yourself, because it's pretty exciting when you think about it. Triple blind study. I've got cancer and healthy cells in Petri dishes. Triple blind study. These are in Petri dishes. These aren't even in human beings, okay? Triple blind studies. I believe they took 5,000 people, and they taught them how, I'm going to use the word pray because they did use the word pray. So prayer itself is not necessarily something that we understand, but the idea is to send positive vibrations, okay? The purpose of a prayer would be to send positive energy. It's to put the vibration of joy and love into a situation that's devoid of the vibration of love. So these 5,000 people were taught how to give love to these Petri dishes, okay? So one group sent their love to one Petri dish, and the other one didn't have anything sent, or it was sent the opposite of the vibration of love, okay? The most amazing thing is, in this Petri dish, it was like a Pac-Man, where the healthy cells went and ate the unhealthy cells. And in this one, the opposite happened. The cancer cells thrived. The cancer cells won. We are a perfect ecosystem. What are we feeding our cells? There's never been a better period in history where we're incentivized to think about, what are we feeding our cells? What are we feeding our cells? So there's going to be all sorts of people that come out with these ways that you're going to make yourself healthy after this. Now you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But buying a product is not what's going to change your relationship with your body. It's going to be changing how you feel. It's going to be igniting joy. How do we ignite joy? How do we ignite joy? This is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to go try to dig up honey or a cough drop or something. So you guys are going to have to let me pause for a moment, add questions to the chat room, and I will be right back in 1 minute. Thank you. Or talk among yourselves. I heated my my dandelion chicory root caramel nut tea. Got myself a tablespoon of honey, so I think we're good to go. And I have to learn how to speak on Zoom differently. Just have to figure that out. I just don't know how to do that yet. Okay, so let's see. There's some private messages here. Let me just read them quick. Okay, so let's continue with this. How do we increase joy? That's our goal. Our goal is to increase joy. I don't even think we need to talk right now about abundance or food or pesticides or anything else. We know the basics. We know the basics of the other things to keep this ecosystem in balance. But the one thing that we haven't done enough of, which is why most people have illnesses and body disharmonies, and if you watch and you see around the world, you can see body disharmonies are increasing at a really frightening rate. All ages, all walks of life, people are getting illnesses that were totally unheard of. There's new ones popping up all the time because we stopped feeling joy. We've gotten very busy, very task-oriented, very hyper-responsible, and our energy of time, money, love, and choices is going toward the opposite of joy. So we got to bring back joy. Certainly, any expression of love, giving or receiving love, is going to ignite joy. The single greatest power that we have is to improve your relationship with yourself again. Fall back in love with who you are. Don't think that just because you see somebody that has something more than you think you have, whether it's spiritual wisdom or a nicer nose or a prettier house or better behaved children, whatever it is that you think someone else might have other than you, stop using that as your bar or your incentive for your relationship with yourself, because you are everything. You are whole. You are perfect. There's really nothing that you have to do to make yourself be worthy or to make yourself better than someone else. What you got to do is just love yourself. So we can't do it all tonight, but we're going to work on getting rid of shame, getting rid of the misbeliefs that confine us, getting rid of limitations, getting rid of regret, getting rid of comparisons to others in a negative way. We're going to get rid of all that. So the number one thing that we can do to ignite joy is to increase our love of self. And not that I usually will offer a way that you can get there, and I didn't even intend to do this, but a good place to start is the book Begin Here. No matter how much you love yourself before you read the book, you're going to love yourself more by the time you're finished with it. So it's a good place to start. So the first way to ignite joy is to love yourself more, to make it the number one priority of your life. Yeah, there's a lot of people that need you and want you, and you're responsible for them, and you think you're responsible for everybody's happiness and their financial, social, spiritual, economic, and educational, and all of those well-beings, but you're frankly not. When you bring yourself back to full love, you have more that you can contribute to others. When you are not loving yourself, what you're giving to others is going to leave you depleted. So that's number one. It's important that we see it as number one. Okay? The other part of it is play. Corona is giving us a great opportunity to play more if we're using it. Some people might still be spending a lot of time with their energy, worrying or being afraid or watching the news or all of that. But for those of us who have had enough of that stuff And we're turning our attention to, what can I do with this enhanced amount of time that I have? A lot of people are playing more. Playing and giving yourself permission to really immerse yourself in the play is one of the greatest ways that we ignite joy. Because playing is fun. Fun leads to joy. Anything that we do that just creates a feeling of happiness in our lives, whether it's growing flowers or playing an instrument or learning a language, any focus that makes us happy brings joy into our lives. Anything at all. I talked about this, I think this was in the EPG for the Plainview group last week, so you might have seen this. I said I generally don't bring the same information through twice like this, but big ones are giving ourselves permission to feel awe. Awe from anything. Like, I'm so awed that, isn't it weird? Like, I can't get this one piece of hair, no matter what I've done tonight, I can't, it's got like a permanent bump in it. And it's like so funny. I mean, like, awe of how I can't get that one piece of hair to do its thing. But there's just goofy stuff like all day. It's just so much to feel awe about. If you allow yourself, you could allow yourself to feel boredom. You could allow yourself to be addicted to looking at things that are negative. You can allow yourself to put the most precious stuff, your time and your behavior and your choices, to things that don't have any awe or wonder in them. But every single time you do that, it's a choice. It's a choice. I have had an extraordinary number of videos sent to me over the last 3 weeks. And I'm not going to watch them all, but whenever someone sends one to me, if they're asking me a question about it, I try to look at it just enough to get an intuition about what the content is for the purpose of helping my client or answer a question. But one of the things I found is that with this proliferation of, how would I say it? Proliferation of like conspiracy theory videos that are out there right now, whatever you want to think a conspiracy theory might be. My clients' vibration is changing because they're watching video after video after video after video. And maybe they're turning to me to say, is there truth to this? Is this going to happen? I'm afraid of this. Or is this true? My role is not to tell you whether or not a video is true. My role is to tell you how to create the reality you want. If you watch that video and all of the videos that are similar to it, if they make you feel like you're strangling, if they make you feel afraid, if they deplete your energy, if they make you want to reach out to me because now you're afraid of life, then clearly you're not creating a reality of joy. You're not experiencing any joy in watching those videos. And if you really know and understand that life on earth is fiction, recognize that when you give a ton of your energy to conspiracy theories, alien invasion stories, covert reasons for why Corona was created by the Illuminati, whatever you're giving your attention to, if they're not bringing you joy, these videos, if what you're paying attention to is not bringing you joy, then what are you doing to the ecosystem of your body? You're making it unhealthy. When every person on this planet can make their own personal ecosystem healthy, everything on the planet becomes healthy. Your personal ecosystem really is the equivalent of self-love. When your personal ecosystem is healthy, and so is your neighbors, and the next neighbor, and the next neighbor, and the next neighbor, and the next neighbor, everything on the planet becomes healthy. That's the path. It's not blaming. It's not worrying. It's not being afraid. It's just igniting joy, awe, happiness, and play. This is the only answer. That's the only answer. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Susan has a question. So Susan, where did you go? I'm going to unmute. Okay, I can hear you.
Am I unmuted?
No, I can hear you.
At the risk of being a Debbie Downer, all of what you're talking about, I feel like I was really good in until this whole thing happened. Because what brings me joy is being around other people. And I don't really have that option right now in a way that I would personally define as deeply fulfilling, highly rewarding, totally satisfactory. So it's interesting to observe myself as like some of the opposite of this right now, because some of the pieces of what's going on just deplete the joy that I would get if I had access to normal, whatever that is, stuff. Like I was even thinking today, I'm like, oh my God, it's EPG day. And then it was like, oh, and last month we were in person and we went up to the rooftop afterwards and it was so amazing.
Well, that's pretty cool, wasn't it?
And I like,
hopefully everyone on this call will be in the city the next time we're there.
Yeah. And that gives me such, I mean, even just talking about it makes me feel so much better. And so this, I feel weighted, I feel heavy, I feel the opposite of these things that what you're saying this time, not what you're saying, I don't mean it in that tone, but what you're describing as the things that are bringing everybody else along. I feel like I'm being pulled by the hair backwards, and I don't know what to do about that.
Okay. I think that you're not alone in your question, Susan, number one. By the way, you look really beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give you a hug. Okay.
Thank you. I'll take it.
You're not alone. You know, of course, I'm talking to a lot of people these days that are having the same challenges as you, because, like you said, they like people and they like being involved and they like being out there and they like connecting and they like building and creating and so on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different, I told you, I was talking earlier about like, what are the steps of enlightenment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The soul is going to come up to moments in physical reality where we have to make friends with a tool for enlightenment, or we ignore it. If we ignore it, we're going to continue to have disharmony. But if we make friends with it and then we integrate it, then we grow. We get closer to the vibration of love. We get closer to the soul that we actually are. I didn't go through the whole list of what they are, but clearly so many of them, the possibility for people to experience these aha moments is incentivized now in a way that probably hasn't ever been in our lifetimes. So one of them, of course, is surrender. That's the one that, you know, I've been talking that one up for 8 years, asking people to join the surrender bandwagon. But the other one here, and this is sort of a blend of these two. But the other one here is there's no such thing as time. I know we're living in a physical reality where we believe in time and we believe in space and place. But one of our major enlightenment strategies that we want to become friends with and integrate is patience. And patience means that we live within the construct of this thing called time, but we no longer feel an immediacy of having to have whatever it is that we want in exactly that second. So patience, it's a huge opportunity in the soul's development to be able to work with it in a way that we're experiencing surrender and we're experiencing the ability to wait for something that we believe is worthy, and to do so while maintaining an experience of joy while time is unfolding. It's not enough to wait, because then that's not really patience, right? The idea of patience is integrating joy during the waiting period. Okay?
Okay.
So for those of, I found a cough drop and I'm just not enjoying it.
Yay.
So, pardon me. I haven't had a cough drop in so long and I just really wasn't enjoying it. It actually seemed to soothe the throat, so I can talk a little bit better. So for you, since you have integrated so many of the values, the valuable aspects of enlightenment, of awakening, you've done so many. This is an opportunity for you to say, okay, I can see that it's time for me to turn my focus and my potential toward integrating and discovering the value of patience. So in this case, the way that I would find myself being more patient during Corona, if I'd rather be out with people, what I would do is I would turn my attention and focus to how exciting that, like, let's say I nailed this one and 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 this one, right, Susan? Because we all know you have integrated a lot of the aha moments of enlightenment. So now, if I just tuck in for a little while and I play, if I play and tuck in, I'm just going to turn my attention to all the things that make me happy other than being with people. And I'm going to just get very, very excited or awed about how many of this stuff millions of people can integrate during this period. So when I get outside again and I get to play with people, they're going to be more enlightened. And that's going to make playing with them more fun and better. And it's going to give me more people to play with, because we all understand this. I think there's someone online that we've actually had conversations about this. But when you are looking around a stadium, if you are an enlightened being and you're living in joy and self-love and awe and body harmony and, you know, got rid of all the masks and layers of your childhood and you're just glowing. If you're living that and you're in a stadium, how many people in that stadium are you going to find that are going to be peers to you? How many are going to meet soul to soul, tete-a-tete? Very, very, very few. You're lucky if in that entire stadium of people, you can find 1 to 3% of the population that can enjoy real soul-to-soul connectedness with you, right? Yep. So now, when we're allowed back in stadiums, that should rise. That should rise. Okay. People who are on edges of enlightenment, this is going to be the thing that tips the balance. This is the thing that's going to move them over, and they'll get another check on their list, another integration of a soulful experience. I'm going to mute you just to make sure that I can move on from this. Sorry, Susan. Feel free to raise your hand. So for those of us who find it disagreeable to be kept from the activities that we once enjoyed, what you want to think about is, what are some of those qualities of awareness that might elude me that I can strengthen while I have this extra time on my hands, or I have this extra energy on my hands. If you use this period for good, then you're increasing your vibrational energy, and therefore you're literally making the world a better place. By making an improvement to your vibrational energy during this period, you are making the world a better place. So that's the answer. Okay. And over the years, I've given lots and lots of tools and resources, and they're all there in Happy in 90, that online program that I created. But just keep going back to the tools that can help to shift your mood, shift your mood, shift your mood, shift your mood. Because what we're doing sometimes is we're telling ourselves that we have permission to feel, I'm not saying you, Susan, at all. I'm talking to everybody now. But we give ourselves permission to feel dark. We give ourselves permission to feel blue and stay there. I am not saying that we want to squash feelings. A squashed feeling will always emerge somehow, probably as an unhealthy cell. It's not about squashing feelings, but it's knowing that we can work through our feelings in healthy ways, and then we can use our tools to shift our perspective and our attention and our focus to something that's life building, something that's healthy again, so we can get our ecosystem back in balance. I always listen to people say how stress causes illness, and we all kind of get that and we accept it. No one's going to fight. Even doctors today who are trained to look at the body as an imperfect structure that's filled with vulnerabilities and holes, right? But even doctors will admit that stress causes and create illness. So we're even on the same page on that. However, if you really think about the word stress, what is stress? So for one person, it might be that my dress didn't get here in time and I needed to hem it before the event in June. For another person, stress is I'm working freaking 70 hours a week and I barely see my family or have fun. For another person, it's I sold my house, my mother died, and my cat wakes me up in the middle of the night 3 times a night. So everybody's version of stress is different, and every person's body and ecosystem will respond differently to different stresses. Some people can't manage when the sun doesn't come out and shine for a while, and that's a stress. So we really can't have a unifying answer as to what stress is. But the one way we can see it differently is what stress is it's a lack of joy. Stress is a lack of joy. So if I did have one of those, you read this list, if 2 or 3 of these 10 things have happened to you this year, then you're in a lot of stress. Well, what if I am moving? What if I am changing jobs? And what if I am doing this? Although other people might see that as stressful, what if I saw it as joyful? Then I don't have the stressors that could create unhealthiness in my body or in my mind. Okay? So it's a matter of how am I viewing what's happening? You bring your lens to every single thing. You bring your lens. I want to read this because I saw something that caught my eye. Jennifer, I'm 100% with you. Yes. I agree, Susan, totally. Yeah. Jennifer says restrictions give me stress. I think that's a funny thing because those of you, I've been looking for the lid for this marker for like 5 minutes now. If anybody sees my lid, it's not a lid, it's a cap. If anybody sees my cap, tell me where it is because I clearly cannot find it.
Karen, it fell on the floor.
Oh, thank you.
On the floor a while ago, and I saw you looking for it.
Oh, okay. So me and the cap will be reunited later then. I'm going to put it over there so it stops distracting me. Okay. So I don't remember what I said when I got.
Restrictions give me stress.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm feeling too much joy right now. Okay. Yes. Restrictions, I would say restrictions could easily become a stressor for me. And there's a reason. And when your consciousness goes to the energy realm and you see life differently and you get a different perspective about everything that we're experiencing here, you can understand even more, but from a visceral perspective, what I'm about to say. But in the energy realm, it becomes very, very clear that there's all these words we throw out there for joy or happiness or whatever. And we think that they're all synonyms for each other, especially for love. Like people will say, well, love is, bliss, love is freedom, and love is peace, love is calm, love is joy, whatever words we're throwing out there. In the energy realm, what I experience is that the closest word to, or the closest experience to the vibration of love actually is freedom. Freedom is almost love. Freedom is not love, but freedom is almost love. Bliss comes somewhere else. Compassion comes somewhere. Play, peace, calm, all these things fall somewhere in this vibrational scale. But the next runner-up to the vibration of love is freedom. So freedom, when you have restrictions, it makes you feel powerless because someone's taking away love. Someone's dialing down the vibration of love for you. And I do understand that freedom is highly motivating for me in everything that it is that I do. So I don't jump on the fear bandwagons. I don't ask for the government to regulate more. I don't ask for more governmental intervention. I don't ask for the government to tell me how to live my life. I just don't. I don't ask for anybody to tell me how to live my life, okay? Because freedom is love. And I wasn't even going to get into it tonight, but I'll at least put 1 second out there more. It's just too big of a topic to cover tonight. But part of the greatest enfolded potential benefit in the coronavirus is to bring potentially millions more people back to caring about their own freedom, taking back their right to freedom. That could be one of the single greatest positive possibilities that happens, is if millions and millions and millions of people care more about personal freedom. And it is a big topic, which is why I didn't get into it too much tonight. But Jennifer, we're definitely on the same page there. All right, we have someone who has more joy on walks and seeing more people same day and seeing people. We all see this now. People on bicycles, people walking their dogs, people in the parks. I definitely see all of this. Power to the people, right on. Yes, Carrie, thank you. Yes, absolutely. But I began this whole night talking about what will you accept? What will you put your energy toward? The biggest one of all for me is to put it toward things that bring more freedom. I know a lot of people know me. They know, I can't even freaking find it. I have a phone, right? And I barely use it. Clearly, I barely use it. You guys haven't heard it go off or anything. But one of the reasons that I barely use it is I understand in today's period of history that it's kind of a good tool for a couple of things, and I use it for a few things. But I feel like I'm putting out a message to the universe in my choice by not having every app, every location finder, every service that's now in my personal space, because I want the freedom to choose who interacts with me, where and when, in a knowing way. So by not using my phone the way most people use their phone, I feel like I'm standing up for freedom. And people who travel with me, it's unsettling to them because I'm the only one all the time has to go and get my boarding pass printed out at a kiosk, and I've got to do this and I got to do this. And they all just, I did find the phone, there it is, over where it's completely ignored and it doesn't even exist. All right, so I found the phone. All right, so everybody is, holy mackerel, that's a lot of messages. Okay, so everybody else, they're like, you know, flashing it, and they're through, and then they're through, and then they're through. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Because to me, standing up for freedom, it's not just about me. I don't really care that much for me personally. But I feel like one of the tiny little contributions I can make to humanity is to stand up for freedom in every way that I can. And I stand up, and it sounds funny, but I stand up for freedom by not having something as simple as a boarding pass app on my phone. That's one way I stand up for freedom. So it's a lot of choices. It's a lot of choices about how invasive we want others to be in our lives before we have no freedom of choice anymore. All right, I'm really losing my voice, and I did say I was going to end early. Let me just read this. All right, there was a couple of, I had printed out a bunch of questions that people had sent in, so let me just try to answer a couple of those questions off the top of my head. So I'll just state things rather than reading the questions. One person was asking me about dates and coincidence of dates. And it's a longer story than that. They were just talking about the magnificence of dates in April right now and opening up possibilities and how powerful and meaningful these are. But one thing you want to recognize is that coincidence is a purposeful intersecting of events. And whenever you have overlaps of dates with other people that are meaningful, whether it's, you know, the day that your mother died is the day that your friend's child was born, or the day that you got married is the day that your boss's daughter got married. You know, when you start to see these things with other people, these coincidences of dates, what it's doing is it's kind of taking away that narrative of having to dance a constant dance of learning to trust one another, and recognizing that the date coincidences are designed to help us understand that we're in this magnificent soulful journey, and that the levels of complexity and how we meet, how we experience one another, and how we knew each other before we were born, and how we are having similarities in this journey even before we knew each other in this journey. All of these things are just other ways that the universe communicates with us for us to see and pay attention to the more magnificent aspects of reality other than this day-to-day physical fiction play that we're living. It helps us cut through the things that separate us from our soulful wisdom and help us remember that there is something more beautiful and magnificent at play all the time. So let's not forget that. That's what that's all about. Now, as far as the numerology of certain dates this month and dates overall, I don't follow nor know anything about numerology. But what I can tell you is that a number has energy just as much as a person has energy, or a rainbow has energy, or a piece of music has energy. The myriad ways that we can make discoveries or learn things or know things, it's infinite on this planet. And that's kind of the beauty of it, that some people will be really excited about numbers, and some people will be really excited about music, and some will be excited about music and numbers and the science behind how a cesspool works. So it's a matter of having so many choices in our connection with the study of of life, really. That's what it is, isn't it? Isn't it just the study of life? Aren't we all trying to figure out what we're doing here for the purpose of how do we make it better for ourselves and for others? We're all studying life. I became, last night I got so excited about, like, I was thinking, you know what, I think I just want to take like palmistry for dummies. And anyone who knows me, you know that I don't study astrology. I don't study numerology. I don't use crystals. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do that. And then all of a sudden I got this bug last night. It's like, how cool would it be to just learn, like, you know, palmistry for dummies? Like, just show me the basics. So anyone want to show me the basics about my palm? Yeah, write it in. Or look at my palm next time you can touch me. Grab my hand and say, look, let me see your palm. I know stuff. I can tell you. It's really cool. The one thing I do know, as a matter of fact, though, oh, there's two things I know. I think I learned this in high school. So one is that, oh my gosh, I have a hell of a lifeline. Really, it's a life. That's really cool. So then there was this other thing that somebody taught me in high school once. And it said something about I'm not going to go into it too much, but the bends of your fingers say, one is, I don't remember, subjective and objective. One is what is possible to happen, and the other is what will happen, right? So when this girl, and when I was 16, was reading this on me, it basically said that I was going to have 3 kids, but it looked like I might only have 2, but there kept being this third one creeping in. So just to kind of say how it's kind of funny, this is why I thought about learning palmistry last night, is it occurred to me that that's exactly what happened in my life. I had 2 kids, and then 10 years later, this surprise happy little package popped up, and I had this third one that kind of eked his way in there. So I thought, if that one part was true of something that someone said to me 10 years ago, how much fun would it be to play around with the rest of it? And clearly you could see that it is playing. There's no drama here. There's no, oh my God, I'm going to die. Oh my God, what's going to happen? My firstborn's not going to be a doctor. None of that. It's about playing. Let's look at how we find out what life is all about and do it in a playful way, not through drama, not through fear, but through fun and play. I did a program with a numerologist, I was trying to think of that, years ago. And I didn't know anything about numerology, but what was disappointing to me about the event afterward, I had a great time, but everybody that attended, they got a pretty thick report as a result of attending. There was a lot of positive in the reports, but for every positive sentence, there were probably 2 negative sentences. And when I started to see that from clients, I was really ready to just have a massive bonfire in my backyard and invite everyone over to burn them. Because why the hell are we trying to learn through negativity? Come on, there's enough negative out there. Go through that report, throw every negative page away, and pull out the positives. Life is short. We got plenty to do by only looking at the positive. We don't need to immerse ourselves in the negative. Just pay attention to the positive no matter what it is that you're doing. Keep paying attention to the positive. So I hope that that answered more than one question of my long list of questions that I had here. And I do hope that many of you that are here tonight, and you get to see some of the regulars that are in the city each month, and sometimes they make the trek in from long distances. If it is possible, we're on the Upper West Side, 83rd and Central Park West. And as somebody said earlier, it's somehow we have parking angels with us because we all seem to find decent parking. But please come on down and see what our group in the city is like. And I look forward to seeing you guys in person soon, no matter how much longer we're doing this. Obviously, very clearly, I'm not meant to move all of my work online. Zoom is absolutely wonderful as a tool to get together and to have so many more people. It is killing my voice. I probably have to figure out why. Somebody could probably type it in that chat room right now. Like, what value is there for me losing my voice every time I'm on Zoom? I have no idea. I haven't figured it out yet. I guess it's just to incentivize us all to get back into a public space together where we can hug and see each other and feel good about being around each other's energy. And I'm not one of those people that's going to go online only after this. Okay, I guess the guys are making sure that I don't do that. But someone recommended I drink more tea, and I will. I'm telling you, this is now going to be gone till I'm up for an hour tomorrow morning, and then we'll start it all over again. But that's okay. It's worth it. It's so totally worth it. I love being with you all. I love seeing your faces. I totally, completely can't wait until we're physically together again. Thanks for connecting. Thanks for caring about me, and thank you for caring about each other. I am totally, totally excited about all of the positive possibilities that are coming out of Corona. And if you have a challenging moment like Susan, or a challenging month like some other people I know who are online with us right now, it's okay. Number one, I'm here for you. I'm a conduit to the vibration of love. That means that there's a lot of conduits to the vibration of love out there. And you are one also. You just might not be able to tap into it for a temporary period, but that doesn't mean that you're not one. We are all here to support and to love one another. And I will not abandon you, because you guys can see how really emphatic my lifeline is. So I'm here, okay? Thank you, everybody. I'll leave Zoom up for another minute or two so everybody can say hello. I'll watch you, but I won't speak, so I'll wave and you can chat with me, because I'm going to turn my voice off now. All right? But you can all chat for a few minutes, and thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That was super awesome.